Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to binarize new content for VBS Blue through the VBS Geo interface. Specifically, I'm going to show you how to extrude the buildings like you can see here, lay down the roads automatically, as well as import satellite texture like what you see here in San Francisco. To do this, you're going to use the new Binarizer component. You press the tilde key, which is the key to the left of the number 1, which brings up your debug UI, and you're going to expand the Binarizer component. We're going to do the White House today, which means that the first thing we need to do is identify the area we're going to binarize. So we can use the Google search bar here to jump across to where the White House should be. But as you can see, it's all just bare earth because nothing's here yet. So it's a bit hard to tell where exactly we're going to binarize. It is possible just to simply click on the terrain to select an area and binarize that area, but very difficult to tell what we're actually binarizing. There is a Google Maps feature here in VBS Geo, but in the current version, you can't just click on Google Maps to specify the lat and long in Geo itself. Hopefully in the near future, you will be able to do that. The way that I usually do it is I go to Google Maps. So here we have Google Maps. We're looking at the White House, and we just select the area that we want to binarize. You want to pick the bottom left, enter that in just here, and then the top right. So we'll just click up here somewhere, and copy and paste that in. And so now what you see here is the area that is going to be binarized as part of this process, corresponding to that area that I selected in Google Maps. Now this is just the top left and top right latitude and longitude. It doesn't need to be the bottom left and top right. It could be the top left and bottom right. But safe to say that it's going to be a rectangle kind of around these 2 points. We need to enter in a terrain name, so we're just going to say White House. And then we're going to select what we want to binarize. So here we have satellite first, 3 options, 1, 2.5, and 5 meter. This is the actual resolution of the satellite. 1 meter is much more high detail than 5 meter, and there's an exponential increase in the size of higher resolution data. So if you're doing a country like North Korea, it might take, I don't know, 5 days to download all the data at high resolution and maybe just 1 day at low resolution. If you're doing a small area like this, 1 meter resolution is usually totally fine. And then you have to select to binarize OSM. OSM is OpenStreetMap. This is the data source that will be used to create the buildings and the roads. There are a number of ways that you can actually get that data to binarize into VBS Geo. You can see these buttons down the bottom. The first one we're going to look at is GeoFabric. Now, you'd use GeoFabric if you're binarizing an area that is bigger than half a degree latitude and longitude. So you can see the readout up here. The area we've chosen is very small, 0.022 and 0.041. If this was higher than 0.5 and 0.5, then you would have to go to GeoFabric because downloading direct from Overpass, there is a limit of half a degree or 5 gigabyte of data. So when you click on GeoFabric, it'll open up in a web browser. You can then select the OSM you want to download. If we're doing Washington, D.C., you'd go down here and find District of Columbia, and you download this 15.9 megabyte OSM.pdf file. You would do that manually, you download that file, and then you would select it using this button here. Because we're doing such a small area, we can actually just click on Overpass or Rambler. So when we click on Overpass, it'll just go directly to the Overpass API, and we'll download a file. So it just takes a couple of seconds for it to figure itself out. Now it's downloading this file that's called map. Now this is the OSM data for the area, the rectangle that we've created there. So we'll give that just a few seconds to finish downloading. Now it's finished downloading, we can have a look at it. So it's almost an 18 gigabyte file, and it's actually an XML file. It doesn't have a file extension directly from the internet, but it's actually an XML file that is an OpenStreetMap file. Now all we need to do is simply select it in Geo. So we click on this button, we select map, which we just downloaded, we click open, and it'll automatically get converted to an SQLite file. So this has been updated, and you can see we've now got an SQLite file that's been created. It's this SQLite file that will actually be used in the binarization process. Now we just click binarize. Now when you click that, you'll get a notification asking you to close down VBS Geo. You just press a key and VBS Geo will close down automatically. And then it will start the binarization process. Now first, it's going to binarize the satellite data. So you'll get a window like this, and the satellite data will actually be downloaded to the Google Tiles folder. And this is where all of the Google Tiles will be downloaded and essentially cached until they're packed into a PBO file later. So we can see here that VBS Blue is doing its thing, binarizing data. It's downloading a bit of missing data. So you can see in the bottom left here, up to 500 items. I've seen this in the hundreds of thousands. For example, when I did North Korea, I think we had 380,000 Google Tiles downloaded. It took about a week to get all that data down. So just be very, very careful about the size of the area you're doing and the resolution. So we'll just give this a few minutes now to finish downloading the data, and then it will pack it into a PBO file. So it's actually finished now. It's just doing some processing in the background, and then it will pack it into a PBO ready for use in Geo. Okay, so that's done. Let's ignore what it's doing now and have a look at what happened with the satellite. If you go into VBS Blue inset ALB0, you'll see our satellite data is right here, 48 megabytes of satellite for the White House. So now the system has moved on to doing buildings. Now, buildings are different from satellite and roads. In the current version of Blue, there are only 6 files to store buildings. Each file roughly maps to a cube side of the Earth. So if we go to VBS Blue, My Content, Add-ons, you can see these 6 files here, or in this case 5 files, because we're missing any buildings for the 6th cube side. So any new buildings actually need to be packed into these files. So what Binarizor is doing is extracting everything in building side 5. It's going to binarize or create the new extruded buildings, pack it all back up again, and then overwrite building side 5 with the new data. So we're just going to let that finish, and we're going to come back in just a minute. So now the building binarization process has begun. Building side 5 has been extracted, and this debug window has appeared automatically, which will give you information about the progress of the binarization. So VBS Blue is initializing, and now the extrusion process has started. We're getting information about the number of buildings that have been extruded and the overall progress. So again, we're just going to give that a few minutes to complete, and then we'll go from there. So building binarization has completed now. It did 4,052 buildings in total. And now it's packing everything back up into this building site 5 right here. It's generally a lot quicker to pack it all back up than it was to extract it, but we're just going to have to be patient and wait for that to complete, and then we'll move on with roads. So that's done. Buildings are now packed and have been included in this building site 5 file, and now we've moved on to roads. It's exactly the same. We're going to see the information about the progress here, and then it'll be automatically packed into VBS Blue. We'll come back when they're done. Okay, so buildings and roads and satellite have now been packed, and at the end of the binarization process, you'll be given an option to restart VBS Geo. You just press a key. So I just did that. VBS Geo is restarted. We can now go and have a look at what was binarized. We press the tilde key. We go to Binarizor. The data is still here, so we can just click jump, and the camera will bounce over to Washington, DC, and we can see that we have binarized this area around the White House into VBS Geo. It's pretty cool. Here you can actually see the White House, and it should match up pretty closely to what we can see here in Google Maps. So yeah, we can see basically one-to-one correlation there. So that's how you binarize content for VBS Blue through VBS Geo. There's one more thing I want to show you, and that is how to use Model Placer. So we're going to close Binarizor there and open up Model Placement. This is very easy to use. We can just click on Show Models window. These are all the different models that we could add to our terrain. Just for example, here we'll add some Polish buildings. So we'll just add some random buildings here. So I've added 4 buildings there, and they're added temporarily, so they're not actually baked into the map. We can essentially save them permanently by clicking on Save Objects. And what this has done, if we have a look in our VBS Geo folder, which for me is in VBS Geo, in the Components Model Placement folder, you'll have this XML document, Objects. If we have a look at that, this is the definition for the 4 objects, 1, 2, 3, 4, that we just created. If we wanted these to appear in VBS Geo or VBS Blue every time, we would simply copy and paste that object definition into C VBS Blue Systems VBS Blue Objects.xml. So I have copied and pasted those into the objects.xml file in the Systems VBS Blue subfolder of our VBS Blue directory. And now when we restart VBS Geo, which I'll just do quickly now. Okay, so VBS Geo here has restarted now. Press the tilde key and bounce back to our area in Washington, DC. And we'll see when we come down closer to the terrain here that our 4 building models, 1, 2, 3, 4, have been recreated in the correct locations. So that ends the tutorial. I've spoken about how to binarize satellite and OSM content into VBS Blue through the VBS Geo interface, and I showed you here at the end how to use Model Placer to bake 3D models into the terrain. If you have any questions, please hit me up on email or Skype or on Slack, and I'm happy to help you out. Thank you very much.